I never planned to tell this story, but if I disappear, at least someone will finally know the truth. My name is Anna, and for 3 years I lived inside a world that doesn't officially exist. A world where handshakes mean more than contracts, where silence is currency, and where asking the wrong question can be the last mistake you ever make. I met him on a Tuesday. That detail matters because Tuesdays were my slow days at the gallery. I worked in a small art space in the North End of Boston. The kind of place that survived on old money and older families. We sold paintings that cost more than most people's cars, to people who didn't bother asking the price. He walked in alone, which was the first thing I noticed. Men like him, I would later learn, rarely went anywhere alone. He wore a navy suit that was expensive but not flashy, Italian leather shoes that had been shined that morning, and a watch that probably cost more than my annual salary. But it was his eyes that caught me. Dark, intelligent, and careful. The eyes of someone who noticed everything. "Can I help you?" I asked, because that was my job. He smiled, just slightly. "I'm looking for something specific. A Caravaggio. We're as close as one can get in a place like this." Most people who walked into our gallery couldn't tell a Caravaggio from a kindergarten finger painting. I straightened a little, interested despite myself. "We don't have any Caravaggios," I said. "But we have a small Artemisia Gentileschi." She studied his technique. Some say she surpassed him. His smile widened, and I saw genuine pleasure in it. "You know your art. It's why they pay me." He walked over to where I'd gestured, stood in front of the painting for a long moment. It was Judith beheading Holofernes, violent and visceral and brilliant. A woman holding a sword, mid-strike, determination on her face as she killed the general who'd threatened her people. "Violent," he said softly. "Necessary," I replied. "Sometimes violence is the only language tyrants understand." He turned to look at me then, really look at me, and I felt something shift in the air between us. "What's your name?" "Anna Reese." "Anna." He let my name sit in the air for a moment. "I'm Michael." He didn't give me a last name, and I didn't ask for one. Later, I would understand why. He bought the painting, paid cash, arranged for delivery to an address in the Back Bay that I recognized as one of the most expensive buildings in the city. Before he left, he turned back to me. "Do you like opera, Anna?" The question surprised me. "I've never been." "That's a crime," he said, and there was something in the way he said the word crime that made my skin prickle. "I have tickets for La Traviata on Friday. My usual companion can't attend. Would you join me?" I should have said no. Every instinct I had that was still working properly told me to say no. But I was 26 years old, buried in student debt, living in a studio apartment in Somerville that had mice and a radiator that only worked when it felt like it. And this man, this careful, intelligent man with his expensive suit and his appreciation for Artemisia Gentileschi, was looking at me like I was something rare and worth his time. "Yes," I said, "I'd like that." He smiled again, that small, controlled smile. "I'll pick you up at 7. I gave him my address, and he left, and I stood in the empty gallery wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. My roommate Sarah thought I was insane when I told her, "You gave a complete stranger your address? Anna, you could end up chopped into pieces in a freezer somewhere." "He bought a $40,000 painting," I said, going through my closet trying to find something appropriate to wear to the opera. "I don't think he needs to murder random gallery workers. Rich people are exactly the ones you should worry about," Sarah said darkly. She was a public defender, and her faith in humanity had been systematically destroyed over 3 years of watching the justice system fail the people it was supposed to protect. They can afford to make problems disappear. I held up a black dress. "Two funeral? 2 bridesmaid." "Anna, I'm serious. Do you know anything about this guy?" "I know he has good taste in art. That's how Ted Bundy got women too. He seemed cultured and charming." "You're being paranoid." But I let her take a picture of the business card Michael had left, which had only his first name and a phone number on it. I promised to text her when I got to the opera house and when I got home. And I tried not to think about the fact that I really didn't know anything about the man I was going to spend Friday evening with. He picked me up exactly at 7 in a black Mercedes. Not a limo, which I'd half expected, but a sedan that was elegant without being ostentatious. He held the door for me, and as I slid into the leather seat, I caught the scent of his cologne, something woody and expensive. "You look beautiful," he said as he pulled into traffic. I'd settled on a dark green dress that Sarah had finally approved of, paired with the only nice shoes I owned. Next to him in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, I felt like I was playing dress up, but his compliment seemed genuine. We talked about art on the drive. He knew more than most collectors I'd dealt with. He understood composition, technique, the historical context of different periods. When I mentioned that I'd studied Renaissance art history in graduate school before realizing I couldn't afford to finish my PhD, he asked questions that suggested he was actually listening, not just waiting for his turn to talk. The opera was at the Boston Opera House, and I'd never been inside before. The chandelier, the gilt, the red velvet seats, it was overwhelming in the best way. Our seats were in a private box, and I realized with a start that we weren't alone. There was another couple there, older, the woman dripping with diamonds, the man wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car. "Anna, this is Richard and Patricia Moretti," Michael said smoothly. "Richard, Patricia, this is Anna Reese. She's an art specialist." The way he introduced me, the pride in his voice, made me feel like more than I was. We shook hands, made small talk. Patricia asked where I was from originally, Ohio, and seemed charmed by my Midwestern roots, as if I were some exotic creature she'd never encountered in her gilded world. The opera was devastating and beautiful. La Traviata is about a courtesan who falls in love with a man from a respectable family, and the sacrifices she makes to protect his reputation. As I watched Violetta sing her final, heartbreaking aria, dying of tuberculosis and separated from the man she loved, I felt Michael's hand find mine in the darkness. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. Afterward, he took me to dinner at a restaurant I'd walked past 100 times but never imagined I could afford to enter. The kind of place where they don't put prices on the menu and the waiters treat you like royalty. We talked for hours. He asked about my life, my family, parents in Cleveland who'd never understood why I'd moved to Boston to study art. A younger brother in the army, a childhood that was comfortable but unremarkable. I asked about his family, and his face did something complicated. "They're gone," he said simply. "My father died when I was 17. My mother a few years later. No siblings. I'm sorry." He shrugged, a gesture that tried to be casual but wasn't quite. "It was a long time ago. You learned to build your own family. Like Richard and Patricia, among others." He refilled my wine glass. "I have a lot of people who depend on me. It's a responsibility I take seriously." There was something in the way he said it that made me think he wasn't just talking about employees or friends. But I didn't press. I was learning already that Michael had boundaries, invisible lines you didn't cross. He drove me home, walked me to my door like we were in some old movie. Under the flickering porch light of my terrible apartment building, he cupped my face in his hands. "Can I see you again?" My heart was pounding. "Yes." He kissed me then, soft and careful, like I was something precious that might break. When he pulled away, I was breathless. "I'll call you," he promised. I floated up the stairs to my apartment, where Sarah was waiting up like an anxious parent. "Well?" she demanded. "It was perfect," I said, and I meant it. "Did you Google him?" I frowned. "No. Why would I?" She gave me a look. "Because that's what sane people do before they go on dates with mysterious strangers." "It's fine, Sarah. He's just a businessman or something." "Or something," she muttered, but she let it go. I should have Googled him. I should have asked more questions. I should have noticed that his business card had no company name, that he never talked about what he actually did for a living, that men who worked normal jobs didn't have private boxes at the opera or pay $40,000 cash for paintings. But I was falling, and people who are falling don't look down. The next 3 months were like a dream. Michael called the next day, and the day after that. We went to museums, to concerts, to tiny Italian restaurants in the North End where the owners greeted him by name and brought us things that weren't on the menu. He was generous, thoughtful, attentive in a way I'd never experienced. When I mentioned I was having trouble with my landlord, he had his lawyer make a phone call and suddenly my radiator was fixed and the mice disappeared. When I got the flu, he showed up at my apartment with soup from some fancy place and sat with me while I was miserable, not caring that he might get sick too. He introduced me to his world gradually. Dinners with Richard and Patricia became regular occurrences. I met Thomas, his driver, a quiet man in his 50s who treated Michael with a deference that seemed like more than just professional respect. I met Angela, who Michael said handled his business affairs, a sharp woman in her 40s who looked at me with calculating eyes during our first meeting, as if trying to determine whether I was a threat or an asset. I met Vincent. That introduction happened at a charity gala in November, 3 months after our first date. It was for some children's hospital, and Michael had bought a table. I wore a dress he'd had delivered to my apartment, navy blue silk that fit perfectly, which should have made me wonder how he knew my size but instead just made me feel like Cinderella. Vincent Calabrese was holding court near the bar when we arrived, surrounded by men in expensive suits who laughed too hard at his jokes. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of face that could be grandfatherly or terrifying depending on his mood. "Michael," he boomed when he saw us, arms open. "There's my boy." They embraced, and I saw something in Michael's face soften in a way I'd never seen before. Love, or something close to it. "Uncle Vinny, this is Anna," Michael said, turning to me. "Anna, this is Vincent Calabrese. He's been like a father to me." Vincent took my hand, but instead of shaking it, he kissed it, old-world style. "Beautiful," he pronounced. "Finally, this kid brings someone worth knowing to one of these boring things." He winked at me. "You must be something special. Michael doesn't introduce us to his girlfriends." "There haven't been that many," Michael said mildly, but I caught the warning in his voice. Sure, Vincent said, laughing. "Anna, what do you do?" "I work at an art gallery." "An artist? I love it. You know, I have some paintings in my house. They could use a woman's eye." "Michael, you should bring her by." "Maybe," Michael said, non-committal. We moved on, circulating through the crowd. But I noticed that people watched us. Watched Michael, specifically. Men would catch his eye, give small nods. Women would look at me with curiosity or envy or sometimes something else, something that looked almost like pity. In the bathroom, a woman approached me while I was touching up my lipstick. She was older than me, maybe 40, stunning in a red dress. "You're with Michael Rossi," she said. Not a question. Yes, I'd learned his last name by then, though he still rarely used it. She studied me in the mirror. "How long?" "A few months." "Advice, honey? Don't ask too many questions. And if he tells you to stay home one night, you stay home." Before I could respond, she walked out, leaving me staring at my own reflection, my heart suddenly racing. I found Michael back at our table, talking quietly with a man I didn't recognize. When he saw me, he smiled and held out his hand. I took it, but the woman's words echoed in my head. That night, in his bed, I'd started staying at his place most nights. A penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. I finally asked. "What do you do, Michael? I mean, for work?" He went still beside me. The silence stretched out, uncomfortable. "I manage investments," he said finally. "Family business, mostly." "What kind of family business?" He turned to look at me, his dark eyes searching my face. "Does it matter? I'd just like to know." Another long silence. Then, "My family has been in Boston for 4 generations. We have interests in construction, in restaurants, in real estate. I oversee those interests." "That's all?" "That's enough." His voice had an edge now, the first time I'd ever heard him sound anything less than gentle with me. "Anna, there are parts of my life that I keep separate. That's for your protection as much as mine. Some doors, once you walk through them, you can't walk back out. Do you understand?" I didn't, not really. But I heard the warning in his voice, clear as a bell. Okay, I said quietly. He pulled me closer, kissed my forehead. I would never let anything hurt you. You know that, right? I know. But as I lay there in the darkness, listening to his breathing even out into sleep, I wondered what kind of man had to promise his girlfriend that he'd protect her from his own life. The thing about gradual immersion is that you don't realize you're drowning until you can't touch the bottom anymore. The holidays came, and Michael was busier than usual. He'd disappear for hours, sometimes days, with vague explanations about business in New York or Philadelphia. When he was around, he was distracted, making phone calls in Italian that he'd end abruptly when I walked into the room. Once, I found him in his office at 2 in the morning, staring at his computer screen with an expression of such cold fury that I actually backed out of the room without saying anything. The next morning, he was gentle and apologetic, took me to breakfast at my favorite place, bought me a bracelet I'd admired weeks earlier and thought he'd forgotten about. The storm had passed. Whatever it was, I spent Christmas with him. He'd asked me weeks in advance, his voice uncertain in a way that was unlike him. I know you usually go home to your family, he said. But I'd really like you to stay here. With me. My mom will be disappointed. I know, and I'm selfish for asking. But this is my first Christmas in years where I've had someone I actually want to spend it with. How could I say no to that? We spent Christmas Eve with Vincent and his extended family, children and grandchildren. A whole clan that gathered in his massive house in Brookline. It was loud and chaotic and warm, with too much food and wine flowing like water. Vincent's wife, a tiny woman named Maria who commanded the kitchen like a general, adopted me immediately, teaching me her gravy recipe and asking pointed questions about when Michael was going to make an honest woman of me. I watched Michael in this environment, saw him relax in a way he never did anywhere else. He played cards with Vincent's grandsons, helped Maria in the kitchen, told stories that made everyone laugh. This was family to him, I realized. This loud, loving, complicated family. On Christmas morning, just the two of us in his apartment, he gave me a key. I want you here, he said simply. Move in with me. I should have thought about it longer. Should have considered the implications, the way I was becoming more and more entangled in his world. But the apartment was beautiful, and I loved him. I'd admitted that to myself if not to him yet, and my lease was up in January anyway. Okay, I said. His smile could have lit up the city. I moved in during the first week of January. Sarah helped me pack, her disapproval radiating off her in waves. You still don't know what he actually does, she pointed out, taping up a box of books. He's in business. That's not an answer, Anna. That's a non-answer. Why are you being like this? She stopped, looked at me with real concern in her eyes. Because I love you, and you're different lately. You're secretive. You never tell me where you're going or what you're doing anymore. And this guy, he's nice to you, I get that, but there's something. Something what? Something wrong, she finished quietly. I can't explain it, but my instincts are usually good about these things, and everything about this situation is setting off alarm bells. You're being paranoid, maybe, she agreed. I hope I am, but promise me something? Promise me that if anything feels off, if you ever feel unsafe, you'll call me. Immediately. I don't care what time it is. I promise, I said, trying to make light of it. But I won't need to. Famous last words. The first few months of living with Michael were good. Better than good. I fell into the rhythm of his life, learned his routines. He woke early, always before 6, went to a gym somewhere that he never invited me to join him at. He came back, showered, made us both coffee. We'd have breakfast together, and then he'd disappear into his office for hours. Some days he'd go out, taking Thomas and sometimes other men I'd started to recognize, Marco. A guy in his 30s with dead eyes, Joey, younger, eager to please, Paul, who never spoke but watched everything. I kept working at the gallery, though Michael had offered more than once to support me if I wanted to quit. I liked my job, liked having something that was mine, separate from his world. But I noticed that people at work treated me differently now. My boss gave me the better clients, the important sales. Colleagues who'd ignored me before suddenly wanted to have lunch. It took me longer than it should have to realize that word had gotten around about who I was dating, and that affiliation carried weight. It should have bothered me more than it did. In March, everything changed. It started with a phone call. Michael was in the shower, and his cell phone rang on the nightstand. I normally wouldn't have looked, but the name on the screen made me freeze, FBI Special Agent Morrison. The phone rang out. I stood there, my heart pounding, staring at it like it might bite me. When Michael came out, toweling his hair dry, I was still standing in the same spot. "You okay?" he asked. "Someone called, FBI." I watched his face. He didn't flinch, didn't react at all except for the slightest tightening around his eyes. "Did you answer?" "No." "Good." He picked up the phone, looked at it, deleted the missed call notification. "Anna, sometimes people contact me because of my business interests. It doesn't mean anything. The FBI doesn't call people about nothing." He came over to me, put his hands on my shoulders. "Listen to me, there are people who don't like that my family has been successful. Who think because we came from the North End, because we have Italian last names, that we must be criminals. It's prejudice, pure and simple. They've been trying to find something wrong with my business for years, and they never have, because there's nothing to find." "Okay," I said, wanting to believe him. "Hey." He tilted my chin up. "Do you trust me?" "Yes." "Then trust that I'm telling you the truth. I'm a legitimate businessman, that's all." I wanted to believe him so badly that I let myself. But that night, after he fell asleep, I did what I should have done months ago. I took my laptop into the bathroom, locked the door, and Googled Michael Rossi Boston. The results made my blood run cold. News articles, court documents, FBI press releases. A whole history I'd been blind to. Michael Rossi, alleged underboss in the Calabrese crime family. Rossi, named in federal racketeering investigation. Son of Anthony Rossi, who was murdered in a mob hit in 1999. I sat on the bathroom floor, shaking, reading article after article. There were photos of him leaving courthouses, always in expensive suits, always with lawyers flanking him. Photos of him at funerals, so many funerals. Photos of him with Vincent, identified as Vincent Calabrese, reputed head of the Boston Mafia. The room was spinning. I thought I might throw up. I'd known, some part of me had known, but I'd let myself ignore it. Let myself be dazzled by the opera and the nice restaurants and the way he looked at me like I was precious. Let myself believe the lie because the truth was too terrifying. I was living with a mobster. I was in love with a mobster. I closed the laptop, splashed cold water on my face, stared at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was pale, frightened, and so far out of her depth she couldn't even see the surface anymore. I should have left, packed a bag, called Sarah, gotten out while I still could. But when I went back to the bedroom, saw him sleeping peacefully, one arm stretched out to where I should have been, I couldn't do it. Because despite everything I'd just read, I knew him. Knew his gentleness, his intelligence, the way he cried during sad movies and laughed at stupid jokes and made sure I took my vitamins every morning. He was Michael, the man I loved. He was also someone else entirely, someone dangerous and connected to violence and death and things I couldn't let myself think about. I got back into bed. He stirred, pulled me close, murmured my name against my neck. "Love you," he said, half asleep. He'd never said that before. "Love you too," I whispered. And I meant it, which was the most terrifying part of all. The next morning, I acted normal, made coffee, kissed him goodbye when he left for wherever he went. But something had shifted in me. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way men deferred to him, not with professional respect but with fear. The fact that his office had a safe I'd never seen him open, built into the wall behind a painting. The conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered a room. The night he came home with bruised knuckles and told me he'd hit a punching bag too hard at the gym. The way Vincent sometimes talked about problems being handled, and everyone knew what he meant except they pretended they didn't. I was living in two worlds simultaneously. In one world, I was Anna, the art gallery girl from Ohio, dating a successful businessman. In the other world, I was Michael Rossi's girlfriend, which meant something to people, something that made them treat me with a mixture of respect and fear that I didn't want and hadn't earned. April brought my birthday. Michael threw me a party at an Italian restaurant in the North End. The whole place closed for just us. My parents flew in, and Sarah came, and all of Michael's people, Vincent and Maria, Richard and Patricia, Angela, the guys who worked for him whose titles I still didn't know or want to know. I watched my father shake hands with Vincent, completely oblivious to who he was really meeting. Watched my mother chat with Maria about recipes and grandchildren. They loved Michael, thought he was charming and successful and exactly what their daughter deserved. Sarah cornered me in the bathroom halfway through the night. "You know who these people are, right?" she hissed. "Sarah, I'm not an idiot, Anna. I'm a public defender. I know exactly who Vincent Calabrese is. He's been indicted 3 times and walked every time because witnesses mysteriously disappear or change their stories. It's my birthday. Can we not do this now? When should we do it? When you're in too deep to get out? Oh wait, we're already there. I love him." "That doesn't make him safe," she said, and her voice cracked. "Anna, please, I'm begging you, come home with me tonight. We'll figure out how to get you away from all this." "I don't want to get away." She looked at me like I was a stranger. "Then I don't know how to help you." She left the party early. My parents stayed, oblivious and happy, toasting my future with expensive champagne. That night, in bed, Michael gave me my real present. A small velvet box. My heart stopped. It was too soon. We'd only been together for 8 months. This couldn't be. I opened it. Not a ring. A key. "To the lake house," he said. "In New Hampshire. I bought it last month. It's ours. Somewhere we can go when the city gets too loud." "Michael, this is too much." "Nothing's too much for you." He kissed me softly. "I want to build a life with you, Anna. A real life. I know things are complicated right now, but I'm working on getting out of certain obligations. Give me a year, maybe 2, and I'll be completely legitimate. We can have everything. A house, kids, if you want them. Normal." I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. "Okay," I whispered. Yeah. We made love that night with a tenderness that felt like a promise. Like maybe, somehow, this could all work out. Like love could be enough to bridge the gap between his world and mine. I should have known better. The world I'd entered doesn't let people leave. May was when I started to understand the real danger. We were at the lake house, a beautiful modern place on Lake Winnipesaukee with huge windows and a private dock. I'd taken a long weekend, and Michael had promised me his undivided attention, no business, no phone calls. He kept that promise for exactly 1 day. On Saturday night, we were having dinner on the deck when 3 cars pulled up the long driveway. Michael's whole body went tense. "Go inside," he said quietly. "What's happening, Anna? Go inside, now." I'd never heard that tone from him before. I went. From the kitchen window, I watched men get out of the cars. Vincent was one of them, and Marco, and several others I didn't recognize. They stood in a tight circle with Michael, talking urgently. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see Michael's face, could see the anger there. They talked for maybe 20 minutes. Then Vincent put his hand on Michael's shoulder, said something, and the group dispersed. The cars left. Michael came back inside, his face carefully blank. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, just business." At 10 o'clock on a Saturday night? "Anna, a warning. I just want to understand." "No, you don't." He poured himself a scotch, drank it in one swallow. "You really don't want to understand. Try me." He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Fear. "There's a situation," he said finally. "Someone who used to work with us, he's talking to the FBI. Giving them information." My mouth went dry. "What kind of information?" "The kind that could put a lot of people in prison for a long time." "Are you one of those people?" Silence. Michael, I've been careful, he said. I've always been careful. Nothing with my name on it, nothing that can be traced directly back to me. But yes, if this guy tells them everything he knows, I could be implicated. What are you going to do? We're going to handle it. The way he said handle made my skin crawl. What does that mean? It means you don't need to worry about it. Michael, if someone gets hurt. Stop. His voice was sharp. This is exactly why I didn't want you involved in this part of my life. You can't handle it. Involved? I live with you. How much more involved can I get? You live with Michael Rossi, who takes you to the opera and buys you nice things and treats you like a princess. You don't live with the other guy. And you don't want to. Who's the other guy? He set down his glass, looked at me with something like pity. The guy who does what needs to be done to protect his family. The guy who grew up watching his father get killed in front of him when he was 17 because he didn't handle a problem fast enough. The guy who will do absolutely anything to make sure that doesn't happen to the people he loves. I felt like I'd been punched. Your father. You said he died. You didn't say. He was shot 6 times in our living room. I was supposed to be at school, but I'd come home early. I watched him die on our kitchen floor while my mother screamed. His voice was flat, emotionless. So yes, Anna, when I say I'll handle a problem, I mean I'll handle it. And you don't get to judge me for that, because you have no idea what this life costs. I was crying, I realized. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just stay out of it. He came over, wiped my tears with his thumb. Go back to Boston tomorrow. I need to deal with this. I don't want to leave you. I need you safe, please. So I went, because when he said please like that, I couldn't refuse him anything. Thomas drove me back the next morning. Michael kissed me goodbye, held me too tight, and I had the horrible feeling that I might never see him again. I spent the next 3 days in the apartment alone, jumping every time the phone rang. Watching the news obsessively for reports of bodies found or arrests made. Michael called once a day, briefly, just to tell me he was okay. He sounded tired. On Wednesday, he came home. He looked like he'd aged a decade. There were dark circles under his eyes, new lines on his face. He showered for 45 minutes, and when he came out, he poured himself a drink despite the fact that it was 10 in the morning. Is it handled? I asked. It's handled. Did someone? Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. But I could see it in his eyes. Someone had died, maybe the informant, maybe someone else. Someone was dead because of whatever had happened in the past 3 days. I should have been horrified. Should have packed my bags right then. Instead, I went to him, wrapped my arms around him, felt him shake against me. It's okay, I whispered, and I didn't even know who I was anymore. He cried that day, silent tears that he tried to hide from me. I held him while he fell apart, and then I watched him put himself back together. Piece by piece, until the Michael the first knew was back. But I'd seen behind the mask now, and I couldn't unsee it. June was quiet, too quiet. Michael was distant, spending more and more time away from the apartment. When he was home, he was distracted, always on his phone, always tense. I started having nightmares, dreams where I was drowning, where I was being chased, where Michael's face turned into a stranger's and I didn't recognize him anymore. Sarah stopped calling. I'd pushed her away too many times. And she'd finally given up on saving me. My parents called every Sunday, cheerful and oblivious, asking when they'd see me again, when Michael and I were going to set a date. A date for what? I never asked. Vincent had a birthday party in early July, a huge affair at his house. Everyone was there, the whole extended family, plus what seemed like half of Boston's Italian community. Michael held my hand the entire night, introduced me to dozens of people whose names I immediately forgot. Late in the evening, I excused myself to use the bathroom. On my way back, I passed Vincent's office, and the door was ajar. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. Vincent was in there with Michael and 2 other men. They were looking at photographs spread across the desk. Even from the doorway, I could see they were surveillance photos. A man, captured from different angles, getting into a car, walking into a building. He's got a family, one of the men said. Wife, 2 kids. So did Danny, Vincent said coldly. And that didn't stop this piece of shit from testifying against him. When? Michael asked. Soon. We'll make it look like an accident. I must have made a sound, because Michael's head snapped up. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw horror dawn on his face. Anna, I ran. I made it to the front hall before he caught up with me, grabbing my arm. Let go of me, Anna. Wait, you're going to kill someone. My voice was too loud, and people were starting to stare. You're planning a murder. Keep your voice down. He steered me outside, into the garden where we could have some privacy. It's not what you think. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I heard you. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. That man testified against Vincent's son. Danny got 20 years because of him. He's a rat, and rats get dealt with. That's how this world works. He has a family, so do we, and we protect our own. By killing people? By doing what's necessary. His voice was sharp now. You want to live in the nice apartment? Drive the nice car? Wear the nice clothes? This is the cost, Anna. This is where it comes from. I felt sick. I never asked for any of that. No, but you took it, didn't you? You took it all and you convinced yourself you didn't know where it came from. But you knew. Deep down, you always knew. He was right, and that was the worst part. I had known. I'd just chosen not to look. I can't do this, I said. His face went pale. What does that mean? It means I can't be with someone who murders people. I've never murdered anyone. Don't split hairs with me. You're planning it right now. What do you want me to do, Anna? Walk away? Tell Vincent no? This isn't a job you quit. This is a family, and you don't turn your back on family. Then choose, I said, the words coming from somewhere deep and desperate. Choose them or choose me. The silence that followed was devastating. You know I can't do that, he said finally. Then we're done. I walked away, and this time he didn't stop me. I called an Uber, went back to the apartment, started packing. I didn't have much. I'd gotten rid of most of my things when I moved in with him. Everything I owned fit into 3 suitcases. I was almost finished when he came home. Please don't go, he said from the doorway. I have to. Where will you even go? Sarah's, until I find a place. Anna, he came into the room, and I saw that he'd been crying. I love you, please, we can figure this out. How? How do we figure this out when you're planning to kill someone? We won't. I'll tell Vincent no, you just said you couldn't do that. I'll figure something out. I'll find another way. Just please, don't leave me. I wanted to believe him so badly. But I'd learned enough about his world to know that you don't just tell Vincent Calabrese no. You're lying, I said quietly. I'm not. Yes, you are. You'll tell me you'll handle it, and then that man will die, and you'll come home and tell me it's handled, and I'll have to live with knowing that I'm complicit in murder. You're not complicit. Yes, I am. Just by being with you, I'm complicit. And I can't live with that weight. He sat down on the bed, his head in his hands. So that's it? You're just going to walk away from everything we have? What do we have, really? A relationship built on lies? I never lied to you. You never told me the truth either. He looked up at me, and there was such pain in his eyes that I almost broke. I told you I loved you. That was the truth. I know, I whispered. But it's not enough. I picked up my suitcases. He didn't try to stop me. As I reached the door, he spoke again. Be careful, Anna. Something in his tone made me turn. What? Just be careful. You know things now. Things that certain people wouldn't want getting out. My blood ran cold. Are you threatening me? No. God, no. I would never hurt you. But others. Anna, you need to understand that the things you heard tonight, if you ever told anyone. I won't. I know you won't mean to. But the FBI, if they ever questioned you, if they ever put pressure on you. I'll never talk to the FBI. You can't promise that. They could subpoena you. They could. Michael, stop. You're scaring me. Good, he said quietly. You should be scared. That's what I'm trying to tell you. As long as you're with me, You're protected, but if you leave, I can't protect you if you leave. The apartment suddenly felt very small, and I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. Not in staying with him. In ever getting involved with him in the first place. I have to go, I said. This time I made it all the way to the elevator before I started crying. Sarah took me in without judgment, just pulled me into a hug and let me fall apart on her couch. I told her everything. Well, not everything. Not the specifics of what I'd heard at Vincent's. But enough for her to understand why I'd left. You did the right thing, she said. Then why does it feel so wrong? Because you love him, but love isn't always enough, especially when someone's dangerous. I stayed with Sarah for a week, barely leaving her apartment, jumping every time someone knocked on the door or called her phone. Michael tried to contact me a dozen times a day, calls, texts, flowers delivered to Sarah's building. I ignored all of it. The gallery called. I'd been missing work, and my boss wanted to know when I'd be back. I told her I needed some personal time, and she said take all the time I needed, which was too understanding and made me wonder if Michael had gotten to her somehow. On the 8th day, Vincent showed up at Sarah's apartment. I don't know how he found me. I answered the door thinking it was the delivery guy with the Thai food we'd ordered, and instead there was Vincent Calabrese, standing in the hallway in a three-piece suit like he owned the building. Anna, he said pleasantly. Can we talk? Every instinct I had screamed at me to slam the door. But you don't slam doors on men like Vincent. What do you want? Just a conversation. 5 minutes of your time. He glanced past me into the apartment. Alone would be better. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Sarah. Sarah had appeared behind me, her phone in her hand. I'm calling the police. That would be unfortunate, Vincent said mildly. For everyone involved. Anna, I'm not here to threaten you or hurt you. I'm here because Michael is destroying himself, and I thought maybe you could help with that. Despite everything, my heart twisted. What do you mean? He hasn't slept in a week. He's not eating. He's making mistakes, dangerous mistakes, because his head isn't in the game. He needs you. I can't go back. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to talk to him. One conversation. After that, if you still want to walk away, I'll make sure he leaves you alone. Why do you care? Vincent's expression softened. Because that kid is like a son to me. I watched him grow up, saw what his father's death did to him, saw him build himself into a man his father would be proud of. And now I'm watching him fall apart over a woman, and as much as I don't like it, I understand it. Love makes us weak, but it also makes us human. I don't want anything to do with your world. I know, and that's probably for the best. But before you disappear completely, give him some closure. Please. I looked back at Sarah. She was shaking her head, but I could also see the concern on her face. For all her warnings, she knew I still loved Michael. One conversation, I said. In a public place. Whatever you want. Vincent handed me a business card. Call him. Set it up. I'll make sure he's there. He left, and I stood in the doorway holding the card, my hands shaking. You're not actually going to do this, Sarah said. I have to, Anna. I have to, Sarah. I can't just. I need to end this properly. Otherwise I'll wonder forever if I made the right choice. So I called Michael, and we agreed to meet the next day at a coffee shop in Cambridge, neutral territory, public and safe. I got there early, ordered coffee I couldn't drink, sat by the window watching people pass by living their normal lives. Lives that didn't involve organized crime or men who casually discussed murder over birthday cake. Michael arrived exactly on time. He looked terrible. Vincent hadn't been exaggerating. His suit was rumpled, his face haggard, his eyes red-rimmed. He sat down across from me, and for a long moment we just looked at each other. You look awful, I said finally. So do you. It was true. I hadn't been sleeping either, hadn't been eating. Love, apparently, was as much a physical condition as an emotional one. Vincent said you wanted to talk, I said. I want you to come home. That's not going to happen. I know. He rubbed his face. I know, but I had to try. Anna, I'm sorry. For all of it. For bringing you into this world. For not being honest with you from the beginning. for putting you in a position where you had to choose between me and your conscience. You could still walk away, I said. Both of us could. We could leave Boston, start over somewhere else. They'd find us. And even if they didn't, I'd always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for them to come. That's not a life. So what, you're just going to stay in the life until you end up dead or in prison? I'm going to be smarter. I've been taking steps to distance myself from the day-to-day operations. In a few years, I'll be completely clean, all my income from legitimate sources. I can do that, but I need time. And what happens to the guy you were talking about? The one with the family? Michael's jaw tightened. I convinced Vincent to handle it differently. No one's going to die. We're going to discredit him instead, make sure anything he says to the FBI is useless. It's not pretty, but it's not murder. Because of me? Because I don't want to be that person anymore. You made me see that maybe I don't have to be. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love could really change someone, that I could be the catalyst for Michael becoming a better man. But I'd learned enough to know that the world he lived in didn't allow for redemption arcs. I can't come back, I said, and watched his face crumple. Not now, maybe not ever, but Michael, I do love you. I need you to know that. This isn't about not loving you. Then what is it about? Survival, I said quietly. Mine and yours, because if I come back, one of two things will happen. Either I'll have to close my eyes to everything you do, and that will kill who I am. Or I'll try to change you, and that will put both of us in danger. So this is it? This is it. He reached across the table, took my hand. I let him. If you ever need anything, he said. Anything at all, you call me, no matter how much time has passed. I will always protect you, Anna. Always. I know. We sat there holding hands for a few more minutes, memorizing each other's faces, saying goodbye without saying the words. Then I pulled away, stood up, and walked out of the coffee shop. I didn't look back, because if I had, I would have run back to him, and I knew that would be the end of me. The next few months were hard. I moved into a tiny studio in Somerville, went back to work at the gallery, tried to rebuild my life into something that didn't revolve around Michael Rossi. I saw his name in the paper sometimes, always in connection with some investigation that never went anywhere. I saw photos of him at charity events, always with a beautiful woman on his arm, never the same one twice. It hurt more than I expected. Sarah tried to set me up on dates, but I couldn't do it. Couldn't imagine sitting across from some normal guy and trying to pretend I hadn't spent the past year living with a mob underboss. Couldn't imagine explaining where I'd been or what I'd learned about myself in the process. I'd learned I was stronger than I thought, but also weaker, strong enough to walk away, weak enough to have stayed in the first place. October brought the first frost and an unexpected visitor to the gallery. Angela, Michael's lawyer, walked in on a Tuesday afternoon. She was carrying a large manila envelope and wearing an expression I couldn't read. Anna Reese, she said, as if we'd never met. Angela, what are you doing here? I need to speak with you privately. Is there somewhere we can talk? My boss let us use her office. Angela closed the door, locked it, then pulled the blinds shut. My heart started pounding. What's going on? Michael's been arrested. The room tilted. What? This morning. Federal racketeering charges. They finally got enough to indict. She opened the envelope, pulled out papers. He asked me to give you this. It was a letter, in his handwriting. I couldn't read it yet, not in front of her. Why are you telling me this? Because you're going to be subpoenaed. The prosecution knows about your relationship with Michael. They're going to want you to testify. I don't know anything. You know more than you think. You lived with him for 6 months. You attended family gatherings. You heard conversations. She leaned forward. Anna, listen to me carefully. When the FBI comes to talk to you, and they will come, you say nothing. You invoke your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. I haven't committed any crimes. It doesn't matter. The Fifth protects you from being forced to testify about anything that might incriminate you. And being in a relationship with Michael, living in his apartment, accepting gifts from him, All of that could potentially be construed as benefiting from criminal proceeds. My head was spinning. This can't be happening. It is happening. And you need to be smart about how you handle it. She stood. Read the letter. Think about what you're going to do. And Anna, be careful who you trust. The FBI is very good at making people think they're on their side. She left, and I sat in my boss's office holding Michael's letter, my hands shaking. I waited until I got home to read it. Anna, by the time you get this, I'll be in federal custody. I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but I didn't want to drag you back into this mess by contacting you directly. I need you to know something. Everything I told you about loving you, about wanting to build a life with you, that was real. The only real thing in my entire fake existence. They're going to come after you. The FBI, the prosecutors, maybe even the media. They're going to want you to testify against me, to tell them everything you saw and heard while we were together. I'm asking you not to. Not for me. I made my bed and I'll lie in it. But for you, because once you start cooperating with them, you become a target. Not just from my people, but from everyone in this world who has something to lose. I know what I'm asking. I know it goes against everything you believe in. But Anna, please, say nothing. Invoke the fifth. Make them work for every single piece of evidence without your help. If you do that, if you stay quiet, I promise you this, no one will ever touch you. I've made arrangements. You're under protection, whether you want it or not. Vincent knows. Marco knows. Everyone who matters knows that you're off limits. But if you testify, I can't protect you anymore. I love you. I will always love you. And I'm sorry for everything. I read it 3 times, then burned it in my kitchen sink. The FBI showed up 2 days later. Special Agent Morrison and his partner, Special Agent Chen. They were polite, professional, and absolutely relentless. Ms. Reese, we know you had a relationship with Michael Rossi. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. We're not accusing you of any crime. We just want to ask some questions about what you observed during your time with Mr. Rossi. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Ms. Reese, we can protect you. If you're afraid of retaliation, I have nothing to say to you without my lawyer present. They tried for an hour. I repeated the same words over and over, until finally they gave up and left. But I knew they'd be back. November brought the trial. I followed it in the newspapers, watched the coverage on the news when I couldn't help myself. They had witnesses, wiretaps, financial records. They'd built a case that seemed airtight. And they wanted me on the stand. The subpoena came in late November. I had 2 weeks to comply or face contempt charges. Sarah came with me to meet with the lawyer Angela had recommended, a woman named Patricia Hughes who specialized in Fifth Amendment cases. They can compel you to testify, Patricia explained. But you can still invoke the Fifth in response to any questions that might incriminate you. How can asking about my relationship with Michael incriminate me? Did you accept gifts from him? Live in his apartment rent-free? Attend events where criminal activity might have been discussed? Yes, but I didn't know. It doesn't matter what you knew. What matters is that you benefited from what they're alleging were criminal proceeds. That's enough to give you Fifth Amendment protection. So I just say nothing? You say nothing, over and over and over, no matter how they phrase the questions. And Anna? Patricia looked at me seriously. They're going to try to break you. They're going to make you feel like you're protecting criminals, like you're complicit in everything Michael did. You have to be strong. I thought about Michael's letter, about his promise of protection in his plea for silence. I thought about the life I'd left behind, the things I'd seen, the conversations I'd overheard. I thought about the man who might be in prison for the rest of his life, and how part of me still loved him despite everything. I'll be strong, I said. The trial was in federal court in downtown Boston. I showed up on a freezing December morning, wearing the most conservative outfit I owned. Sarah on one side and Patricia on the other. The courtroom was packed. I saw Vincent in the front row, saw Marco and Joey and others I recognized. I saw Michael at the defense table, wearing a suit that somehow made him look both powerful and vulnerable. Our eyes met across the room. He nodded, just slightly, and I saw something in his face that looked like pride. They called me to the stand. I swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Then I proceeded to invoke my Fifth Amendment rights 47 times. Ms. Reese, did you live with the defendant? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Did the defendant give you expensive gifts? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Did you attend gatherings at Vincent Calabresi's home? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. On and on, question after question, the prosecutor getting more and more frustrated, the judge looking weary, Michael's lawyers looking quietly triumphant. Finally, the judge dismissed me. The witnesses excused. I walked out of that courtroom and didn't look back. Sarah drove me home, and I collapsed on my couch and cried for an hour straight. I'd done it, I'd protected him, and in doing so, I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. The trial lasted another 3 weeks. I followed it obsessively, read every article, watched every news segment. The jury deliberated for 4 days. On the 5th day, they came back with a verdict. Not guilty on all counts. Michael Rossi walked out of that courthouse a free man. I should have felt relieved. Should have felt happy for him. Instead, I felt nothing. Just a vast, empty numbness that settled over me like a fog. He called that night. I didn't answer. He called the next day, and the next, and the next. I didn't answer. He sent flowers to my apartment, to the gallery, to Sarah's place. I threw them all away. He sent letters. I burned them without reading them. Finally, 3 weeks after the verdict, he showed up at my apartment. I opened the door because I knew he wouldn't leave until I did. He looked good, rested, healthy, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Anna, he said. Michael, can I come in? No, I need to thank you. Don't, you saved my life. I lied under oath. I committed perjury. I became exactly the kind of person I never wanted to be. My voice was shaking. So don't thank me. Don't come here. Don't call me. Just leave me alone. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You're free now. Go live your life. Find someone else. Forget about me. I will never forget about you. Try harder. I started to close the door, but he put his hand against it. Anna, please, just listen to me for 1 minute. I've given you enough minutes. I've given you months of my life, my career, my integrity. I don't have anything left to give you. Then let me give you something. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. This is a bank account. In your name, enough money to pay off your student loans, buy a house, never have to worry about money again. I stared at the envelope like it was a snake. I don't want your money. It's not my money, it's yours. You earned it. By lying for you? By being loyal. Loyalty means something in my world, Anna. It means everything. I don't want to be part of your world. You already are. He stepped closer, and I hated that my body still responded to his proximity, that some part of me still wanted him despite everything. You can pretend you're not, but you and I both know the truth. You protected me. You chose me over the law, over your own beliefs. That makes you one of us. Get out, Anna. Get out. I shoved him, hard, and he stumbled back. The envelope fell to the ground between us. I'm not one of you, I said, my voice breaking. I'm not. What I did because I was stupid and in love and afraid. But I'm not afraid anymore. And I'm not in love with you anymore either. It was a lie, but I said it with enough conviction that for a moment I almost believed it myself. Michael looked at me for a long moment. Then he bent down, picked up the envelope, set it on my doormat. Whether you want it or not, it's yours, he said quietly. And whether you want to admit it or not, I'll always be here if you need me. He walked away, and this time I let him go. I left the envelope on the doormat for 3 days before I finally brought it inside. I told myself I was just curious. Just wanted to see how much he thought my silence was worth. I opened it, and that's when everything changed. Because inside the envelope wasn't information about a bank account. It was a flash drive. And a note, in Michael's handwriting, insurance. In case you ever need it. Don't open it unless you have to. If something happens to me, give this to the FBI. If something happens to you, it will automatically be sent to them. We're tied together now, Anna. For better or worse. I'm sorry. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the flash drive. What had he done? I plugged it into my laptop, my heart pounding. The drive contained hundreds of files, documents, photos, audio recordings, video footage, evidence of everything: murders, extortion, racketeering, drug trafficking, names, dates, locations. Vincent, Marco, Joey, dozens of others, and Michael. Michael's voice on recordings, talking about crimes. Michael's signature on documents. Michael in photos with people who ended up dead. He'd given me enough evidence to destroy his entire organization. And himself. I sat there staring at my computer screen, understanding finally clicking into place. This was why he'd pursued me in the first place. This was why he'd brought me into his world, why he'd made me fall in love with him. He needed someone outside the life. Someone who could hold on to this information without being suspected. Someone who loved him enough to protect him, but who existed separately enough from his world that the FBI would never think to look at me. I was never his girlfriend. I was his insurance policy. Everything had been calculated. The opera, the gifts, the gentle courtship, making me fall in love with him, moving me into his apartment. All of it had been part of a plan. And when I'd left, when I'd tried to walk away, he couldn't let me go. Because I knew things, not just the things I'd overheard at Vincent's house, but things he'd deliberately exposed me to, conversations he'd had in front of me that seemed casual but weren't. He'd been feeding me information the entire time we were together, so gradually and naturally that I never noticed. And now he'd made me complicit, by giving me this flash drive, by telling me about the automatic release if something happened to either of us. He'd tied us together permanently. If the FBI ever found out I had this, I'd be charged with obstruction of justice at minimum, conspiracy at worst. If Vincent ever found out I had this, I'd be dead within the day. Michael had made sure I could never truly leave him, never truly be free. The man I loved had used me, had manipulated me, had turned me into exactly what he needed me to be. I should have been furious. Should have taken the flash drive straight to the FBI, destroyed him and his entire world. But as I sat there in my apartment, I finally understood the cruelest truth of all. He had used me, but he also loved me. Both things were true simultaneously. He'd calculated how to bring me into his life, but the feelings that developed were real. He'd manipulated me, but he'd also protected me. He'd lied to me, but he'd also given me the power to destroy him. And now I had a choice to make. I could take the flash drive to the FBI, end the Calabrese organization, put Michael and Vincent and everyone else in prison where they belonged. Be a hero, a good citizen, the person I'd always believed myself to be. Or I could do what Michael expected me to do. Keep the flash drive hidden. Keep the insurance active. Remain tied to him, implicated with him, complicit in his world. I could be free, or I could be safe. But I couldn't be both. I made my decision. I hid the flash drive deep in the back of my closet, inside a box of old textbooks I'd never look at again. And I called Michael. I found it, I said when he answered. I know, you used me. Yes, at least he didn't try to deny it. Everything was a lie. Not everything, he said quietly. I do love you, Anna. That was never a lie. How am I supposed to believe anything you say? You're not. You're supposed to be smart enough not to trust me. But you're also supposed to be smart enough to understand that we're stuck with each other now. I could go to the FBI. You could, but you won't. You seem pretty sure of that. I am, because you're not the person who turns people in. You're the person who protects the people you love, even when they don't deserve it. Even when it costs you everything. He was right, and I hated that he was right. What now? I asked. Now you live your life. You go to work, you see your friends, you date other people if you want to. You build the normal life you wanted. With this hanging over my head? Insurance only works if both parties know it exists. You can't betray me without destroying yourself. I can't betray you without triggering the release of the evidence. We keep each other honest. That's not trust, that's mutually assured destruction. In my world, they're the same thing. I closed my eyes. I hate you. I know. I mean it. I know that too. But I can't. My voice broke. I can't stop loving you. And I hate that even more. Anna. His voice was soft now, gentle. I'm sorry for all of it, but I would do it again. Because the only thing worse than using you would have been watching you get caught up in this world without any protection. At least this way, you have leverage. You have power. You're not just a civilian who got in too deep. You're a player. I don't want to be a player. Too late. You already are. We sat in silence for a moment, the phone line crackling between us. Can I see you? He asked finally. No, Anna. No, Michael. I'll keep your secret. I'll be your insurance policy. But I won't be your girlfriend. I won't be anything to you except someone you used to know. That's not what I want. I don't care what you want anymore. I hung up, but I kept the flash drive. That was 2 years ago. I still live in Boston. Still work at the gallery. Still see Sarah for dinner every week, though I've never told her about the flash drive. Michael calls me every few months. I never answer, but I listen to the voicemails. He tells me about his life, about getting out of the business like he promised, about investing in legitimate companies and charities. He tells me he thinks about me every day. He tells me he's sorry. I never call him back. But I also never delete the messages. Vincent died last year, heart attack, they said. I went to the funeral, stood in the back where Michael couldn't see me. Watched him deliver the eulogy with tears streaming down his face, talking about the man who'd been more of a father to him than his own father ever got the chance to be. After the funeral, he found me in the parking lot. Thank you for coming, he said. He was a good man, I said, even though we both knew he wasn't. He loved you. Told me I was an idiot for letting you go. You didn't let me go. I left. Same result. We stood there in the cold November air, breath fogging between us. I'm out now, he said. Really out. All my businesses are legitimate. I'm clean. Congratulations. It doesn't change anything, does it? What I did, who I was. No. He nodded, like he'd expected that answer. The flash drive. Is it still safe? It's safe. Good. He started to walk away, then turned back. I meant what I said in the voicemails. All of it. I know. He left, and I stood in the parking lot and let myself cry for everything we could have been if he'd been someone else, if I'd been someone else, if the world worked differently than it does. I'm telling this story now because last week, I got a letter. No return address. Inside, just a single sentence. We know about the flash drive. I don't know who sent it. I don't know what they want. But I know my time is running out. If you're hearing this, it means one of two things. Either I've gone to the FBI and told them everything, turned over the evidence, and accepted whatever consequences come with it. Or I've disappeared. And if I've disappeared, know this, everything I've told you is true. The flash drive exists. It contains evidence that could bring down what's left of the Calabrese organization. And it's hidden somewhere. The FBI will find it if they look hard enough. Michael Rossi used me, but in the end, maybe I'm using him too. Because if something happens to me, the truth comes out. All of it, mutually assured destruction. He taught me that. I never planned to tell this story. But if I disappear, at least someone will finally know the truth. And the truth is this. I loved a dangerous man. I protected him when I should have turned him in. I became complicit in his world because leaving seemed more terrifying than staying. But I also made sure that if it all came crashing down, I wouldn't be the only one buried in the rubble. Love and fear, loyalty and survival, truth and lies. In the end, I learned they're not opposites. They're just different faces of the same coin. And I've been flipping that coin for 2 years now, waiting to see which side it lands on. I think I'm about to find out.